Kane.
Yep.
Test your.
It sounds better, doesn't it, without the mute button? Good, good.
Let me go.
The first time in 14 months, it was like, okay.
Howdy.
You're on mute. There we go.
Can you hear me okay now?
There we go.
I think we hear you great.
Kurt, thank Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Good Tuesday evening. Good to see everyone. I am just back from actually flying in an airplane, which was really exciting experience. Flying to the East Coast was really something. There were approximately 300% more people in DIA than I'd ever seen before, and it was a Monday, so I don't know what to say about that. That was pretty damn fascinating. Bill Infante has a Irish fisherman knit sweater, which I brought back from Ireland. But what I found was it never gets cold here. It never gets cold enough here to actually wear the sweater, even in January. But they're really great. So we're going to start with a work session, and we've got Kurt Ravenschlag from RAFTA. Kurt is senior planner and operations manager for RAFTA. He's got what, in my estimation, was a pretty outstanding presentation on RAFTA's vision and schedule of improvements for the Valley out to 2040, which is called RAFTA Destination 2040. I've had the pleasure of seeing this presentation, but I thought it'd be really worthwhile for us all to see it and be a little bit more literate about what's occurring in the transportation world. So I think this is going to be a pretty interactive process here, but Kurt's got a pretty well organized PowerPoint here. So Kurt, appreciate you coming and talking to us tonight. So the floor is yours. Do you know everyone? Do you want a quick introduction, or do you know our town council? We're all pretty famous, so I don't know if you.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Mayor. I'm not as familiar, so that would be helpful for me.
Sure. Okay. Well, you know me, and so we'll just go around the horn. Elise, just say hi. Why don't we just do a quick, 2-second intro just to put a face with a name here. So our counselors are myself, Elise Hattel. Elise.
Hi, Kurt. I'm a newbie. I just started about a year ago on council. I work for Connect One Design. We did some work with RAFTA on the bus stops up and down the valley for BRT. And my background is in sustainability.
Great. Bill Infante.
Welcome, Kurt. Thanks for joining us. I'm Bill. I've been on council for a little bit more than 3 years, in the Valley for coming up on 6, after a lot of time spent overseas in foreign service and diplomacy.
Gary Tenenbaum, I'll bet you know, but he needs no introduction.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill. I'm done.
Yeah.
Hi, Kurt. It's Gary, Picken County, in town of Basalt.
Hi, Gary.
Glenn.
Nice to meet you, Kurt. Glenn Drummond, maybe like Elise. Look forward to hearing what you got to say.
Ryan Slack is there. He is. So Ryan's working on a mustache there, it looks like. It's
Okay.
coming.
Don't need to work on it. It's already there. Hey, Kurt and Ryan Slack. I've been on council for 3 years. I live in Basalt and appreciate what you guys are doing on RAFTA.
So that's our team.
Great.
And, you know, we're in a pretty pivotal spot in the valley
Mayor,
relative to transit.
excuse me,
Miss
Mayor.
David Knight.
David Knight.
David Knight.
David. Yeah. Hey, Kurt.
You owe him a beer
David
now.
Knight here.
Bill.
Been on council for a year now, and my background is in IT. So,
Great.
thanks for
Nice to
coming.
meet you, David. Well, I appreciate that. I'm fairly new to the Valley here. I got to RAFTA about 3 years ago, but I haven't had the opportunity to get around and interact with the various councils and trustees from our member jurisdictions. So I appreciate you all introducing yourself to me, and that helps me out a lot. And I appreciate that.
So the floor is yours.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and thanks for allowing time for us to share with you all an update regarding the progress we've been making on implementing our 20-year capital plan, as well as other services that had been identified in Destination 2040. Most of you are probably, I'm sure, aware that in 2018, RAFTA was successful in passing a ballot initiative with our member jurisdictions for a 2.65 mill levy that would allow us to implement a 20-year capital plan. There were also service enhancements that were a part of that overall plan. Those have, for the most part, outside the one, have been implemented already. This has been really fortunate for RAFTA, come from another transit agency on the Front Range, and being able to have this kind of dedicated funding to be able to leverage local dollars with federal grants really goes a long way in being able to achieve and implement the transportation infrastructure needs that we have for our region. So we've been at this for a little over 2 years now and working and implementing this plan. And I wanted to, I do actually have a PowerPoint of some pictures, but for the majority of this discussion, I'd like to use our website because I try to promote that and draw attention to it because it's a great website. I'll share my screen here, but it's rafta.com/2040 roadmap. And can you all see my screen now? All right. So as a part of the planning process that led up to the approval of Destination 2040, we categorized the various, I refer to them as strategic initiatives, into 3 categories. They're 1, improvements for the environment, improvements for reducing congestion, improving mobility, and improvements for sustainability and safety. Each project received an identification, and we've continued that nomenclature throughout the course of tracking these projects, and it helps for anybody who may have been tuning into this, you know, prior to the election and may have had a project that they were interested in. We've been able to stay consistent in how we've referred to this project, which helps from just a tracking and transparency standpoint. So we've been really, we've prioritized our transparency for this. We know that this was a huge commitment that our region put on RAFTA, and we wanted to ensure that we were, you know, being respectful of that, and we wanted to be as transparent as possible with how we're using these dollars, the progress we're making on implementing these projects. So we created this web page here that I sort of refer to it as the pizza tracker, where we list out all of our various projects that are within Destination 2040, and we show the progress and where each of these projects stand in terms of being implemented. On each project, we also have these fact sheets. So on every project, you can click and get more information about each project that led up to the election. So the project descriptions, the amount of funding that was identified for each project, the justifications for the project, so you can get more details. I'll use this one, for example, for the buses. So this is the kind of information that you'll be able to find on each of those when you click on the fact sheet. So I'll just go through this, try to go through fairly quickly because there's several initiatives that are in the plan. And then I have a PowerPoint. I'll show you some of our project photos, before and after photos of the work that we've accomplished so far. So project E1, under improvements for the environment, we identified, we had a bus replacement. This was one of our primary initiatives that required a large portion of the funding. I think just for bus replacements alone, this probably, I think, equates to over, probably over $80 million, if not more, over the span of 20 years. So each year, the way we deal with this is we track each year's bus replacement. So right now, we have, you can see here, we purchased 10 clean diesel low floor buses. These buses were delivered December 2019. That allowed us to remove 10 of our older buses from our fleet and off our roads and retire those. We had 8 battery electric buses that we put into service in December of 2019 as well. These are, 4 of those were purchased by Aspen, 4 of them were purchased by RAFTA. These are in service in the Upper Valley. We do operate them on our regional services along 82 as well. We have 10 clean diesel buses that should be arriving here actually next week. So those will be arriving soon. We have 6 coaches. These are the bigger buses that you see that are, we call them over the road coaches, that are like the Greyhound type buses. So we have 6 of these that are arriving, starting to arrive next week as well. And these are unique because these have it's a 2-door configuration. We've never had a configuration like this. And the second rear door is what we call low floor. So it'll allow for easier boarding for individuals and mobility devices. So it'll speed that process up significantly, which I know that population will be very happy to have an easier way to board our vehicles. Project E2 was bike share expansion. So in Destination 2040, we had plans to expand the bike share opportunities beyond what currently exists in the city of Aspen and town of Basalt. So it was intended to expand bike sharing into Carbondale and into Glenwood Springs. This is a project that we've had on our radar and has been in discussions for probably since the ballot initiative passed back in 2018. And a lot of those discussions has really led to the conclusion that this particular initiative was probably more complicated than folks originally envisioned in terms of how this would occur in Carbondale and Glenwood. It also recognized that this wasn't inclusive to all of our member jurisdictions, that Snowmass and Newcastle were not part of that. It raised a number of questions in regards to what RAFTA's role is in terms of bike share and the expansion of it. It identified issues in terms of, what is, equitable process for members contributing to bike sharing, what's RAFTA's role of contributing to bike sharing. So basically those discussions really led to more and more questions, which is why we decided to go into a planning process, which is kicking off right now. And I believe your town is involved in this. I think, Susan, you've been probably contacted by David Johnson from RAFTA, who's our planning director, and he's coordinating this effort. But we really want to coordinate with all of our member jurisdictions to be able to come up with a more comprehensive approach to bike share, whether it be expanding upon existing bike share programs or whether it be expanding bike share into new communities. That we wanted to have a more comprehensive plan. We wanted to have a business model, how we would approach that, what RAFTA's role would be, what would be our local member jurisdiction's role. So that initiative, and as well as working with NewCycle in that conversation, since they're the current operator of the existing bike share program. So that planning effort is just getting underway. I know the RAFTA board had a presentation, I believe it was last month, from the consultant team that we hired, just laying out what their approach is going to be to this effort and their schedule. And I'm sure the Basalt Town Council will receive similar presentations. E3 is real-time traveler information. This initiative includes a number of different traveler information systems. This past year, we were able to implement a new way of pushing information out to our customers. So currently, or prior to this initiative, the only folks that were able to receive real-time bus arrival information were those using the BRT system. And if they were standing at a platform, we have variable message signs that let you know bus arriving in 5 minutes, 2 minutes. Well, that technology wasn't available at the stops throughout the rest of our system. And the idea of trying to run power and data and, to all of these stops, some of which being pretty remote, did not seem feasible. So we came up with a much lower cost solution that allows us to extend this technology to all of our bus stops, and that is through a system of text messaging. So at all of our stops, we've installed new signage that provides information on how someone can text. So any kind of device that allows for texting, even flip phone. You can text in to the number, enter the stop ID number that's printed on the sign, and it'll provide you real-time bus arrival information for any routes that serve that stop. So that's now accessible at all of our bus stops throughout our system. E4 is Lova Trail. So RAFTA is part of Destination 2040. It had approximately $2 million to contribute towards the construction of the Lova Trail from Newcastle to Glenwood. That was currently to date, the city of Glenwood Springs has been spearheading that initiative in terms of seeking grants. The project to construct that is obviously well beyond $2 million, but that's RAFTA's contribution to that effort. And right now, Glenwood Springs and Newcastle are the two communities that are really spearheading that effort in terms of pursuing grant opportunities and trying to pull that project together. This past year, they did hit a speed bump and the project was put on hold due to COVID, but we do anticipate that picking back up here soon, hopefully in 2021, hopefully for sure in 2022. So Project E5, this is maintenance and repair and capital projects along the Rio Grande Trail. We have approximately $16 million over the span of 20 years associated with this effort. So this one, each year we develop a program of improvement for the Rio Grande Trail. Some are maintenance, repair, patching of asphalt, fencing, dealing with ditches, repairing of retaining walls, so a number of maintenance efforts. It does provide the funding that we recognize that we will have to do repaving of this trail over this 20-year span. So that's what that particular initiative is intended for. And we also identify the work that we've done. I just noticed here, I have some of the asphalt repair, fencing, rock scaling, shoulder improvements. Those are the typical activities that we do on an annual basis. So that covered the improvements for environment. I'll go to congestion and improving mobility. So here we did have some service enhancements. We increased the service levels. The snow mass, we did that right away after the ballot initiative passed. So that went into effect April 2019 with our spring season. Project C2, this is now bus expansion, so not replacement, but expansion. So this is associated with some of these new services that we added. We are adding vehicles to our fleet. Right now, we have 5 buses that are on order that are expected to be delivered. Actually, no, take that back. Those were delivered in January, and those are already in service. C3, this was another initiative that we've already implemented. We did that the spring of 2019, where we increased our weekend BRT service in spring and fall to the same levels as our weekday service. Along with that, we were able to also extend the Carbondale circulator service on weekends as well. So that one has already been put into effect. Project C4 is increasing the I-70 hogback service. So we significantly increased the peak headways to 30-minute service. I believe it was about, I want to say, close to 20 additional runs per day that we added between Newcastle and Glenwood. Those went into effect December 2019. Those, though, have taken a hit, though, during COVID. And as we've had to scale back our service earlier in the year, that was some of the service that did get scaled back. And it hasn't gotten back to the full level that was identified here in this initiative. Our hope is that we'll be able to get that back either this summer or this fall back to the levels that it was identified for in this initiative. C5, this is the one we have not yet implemented yet, and this is one associated with a planning study that we have underway right now in the city of Glenwood. This is to extend the BRT from, currently the BRT terminates at 27th Street. That's where most of the routes begin and end, is at our 27th Street parking ride. And this initiative would extend the BRT into the downtown area of Glenwood, through downtown to hopefully West Glenwood Springs, to where we can make connections to the hogback in that area, or people who may be driving along I-70 can transition from their auto to the BRT and be able to get through Glenwood Springs quickly. So this, though, has a number of questions of how we would go about doing that. And it is part of a study that we have underway called MOVE, where we're evaluating a number of alternatives of how to extend that BRT, where station locations would be, where we'd locate a transit center in Glenwood Springs, similar to what we have at Ruby Park in Aspen, and a number of other improvement, pedestrian by intersection improvements in Glenwood. So that's underway. We should be wrapping that study up over the next several months. Mr. Mayor, we'll probably be bringing an update on this here, either this next month at the next board meeting or at the subsequent board meeting. I have an update on that project. C6 here, service increases. This was connections between snowmass on Brush Creek Road. This was actually a service improvement that we had already had in place, but the EOTC was actually funding this improvement. So what this initiative really did was transfer the funding responsibility of that service from the EOTC to RAPTA. C7, this was a project that we just finished up this past year. So this is one that you guys may have seen in your neck of the woods, where we had several improvements to Mid-Valley Highway 82 bus stops. Those were at Sagewood, Lazy Glen, Aspen Village, Holland Hill, and Captain Store bus stops. So where we went in, we improved those stops, we brought them to ADA requirements, we provided paving, improved access to adjacent sidewalks, new shelters, bike racks, trash receptacles. I have some pictures of that here in a minute. Here is another project associated with the MOVE study in Glenwood. This is C8, the BRT station. So this is where station would be, this is actually parking expansion at 27th, but it is part of the MOVE study where we are looking to see where the best location for that expanded parking would be near 27th Street. Recommendations will be coming from that study. Project C9, this one is in the town of Basalt. So we had identified expanded parking at the Willits area. Now, we, as we were scoping this out early on in our planning of 2019, we became aware that there was a significant amount of public parking available to access our Willits station at underneath Whole Foods. And we've worked with the town of Basalt to provide some wayfinding and signage to be able to direct customers to that public parking. We realize that that agreement, I believe, has a sunset that's coming up in, I think, near the end of this decade, where we may have to do something different. But we wanted to see how that helped alleviate any congestion of parking at that location. We do have, I believe, about $2 million, though, available in this project for expanded parking in or near this location. So if you weren't aware of that, that is something that we do have available. And we're right now trying to collect more data and get a better idea of where and when we might need to expand parking in this location. Improvements to the town of Snowmass Village Transit Center. We are just a funding contributor to this effort. We have about $500,000 to contribute towards the design of this effort. This has actually had some momentum in the last year or two, where Snowmass has been advancing the design of that transit center, and this may be a project that we are able to see sooner than later. Buttermilk Parking Management Project. This is one that we have not moved forward on, and frankly, I'm not sure if this is a project that's necessary any longer. So that's one we're going to have to review and see the relevancy of that project moving forward. Lastly, we have improvements for sustainability and safety. This is where we have a number of our larger capital projects. So Project S1, this is a grade separation at 27th Street and Highway 82 in Glenwood Spring. This is has been identified to be an underpass. We went through a feasibility study process to determine whether we go over or under. It was determined under was the preferred approach. We're in final design for that crossing. It's a crossing of 27th Street along the Rio Grande Trail, and then a crossing of State Highway 82 to connect the 27th Street Park and Ride to the trail, and possibly additional parking that may be on that side of the highway. So this is a project that we envision going to construction later this year, maybe November timeframe, is based on our schedule currently.
And I would add that most of the commentary on design is that they are working hard to try to achieve the quality in terms of light and safety and sort of design of the Basalt underpass. So I think we set a pretty good template for the 27th Street underpass there in Glenwood.
Absolutely. I know our team learned a lot from the Basalt underpass, and a lot of that will apply to this project. S2 is Southbridge. So this is a very large capital project in the city of Glenwood Springs. It's, I think last I heard, about a $60 million project. RAFTA is a funding contributor to that effort of about approximately $4 million. So as that project starts becoming more real, we have some funding to contribute to that effort. S4, this is Buttermilk pedestrian crossing. This is a grade separation that RAFTA would really like to see as a priority to improve the safety of that crossing. As any of you have ever tried using the at-grade crossing there, and well, in ski boots and skis and trying to cross Highway 82, it can be a little hairy at times. We have funding in here. It's, again, we're just contributing some funding to help with design, about $500,000. Our role is more the role of a facilitator to try to get the necessary parties together and try to bring that project to realization. S6, this is an expansion down the road at our AMF facility in Aspen, our maintenance facility in Aspen. This is to expand on some of our administrative areas, maintenance areas at that facility. Another expansion under S6 was phase 9. This is one we just completed this year. This is one of our larger projects. This was a complete removal and replacement of our existing fuel farm at the Aspen maintenance facility, where we removed all of the old tanks that had been installed in the early 80s and replaced them with new tanks and new fueling bays and fueling islands and internal fuel station as well. So that's one we just wrapped up. I think I have some photos of. S7 is probably one of the largest capital projects on the entire list. This is one that's occupying a lot of our time right now. This is a multi-phase expansion of our Glenwood Springs maintenance facility. So this facility was originally built in 2000 as a satellite facility to our Aspen maintenance facility. But over the last 2 decades, the way our service and demand has shifted, and there's been a much greater need for service down valley, and now we're seeing in the Colorado River Valley, that this facility in Glenwood is really becoming our primary facility, and Aspen is becoming a bit more of that satellite facility. Well, when this was constructed, it was only constructed to operate about 34 buses out of that facility. We're currently operating over 60 buses out of this site right now. It's way over programmed. And we developed a multi-phase expansion of this that we've been pursuing funding for many years. And just this past year, we received close to $25 million in grant funding from the federal government, one through an FTA grant, and then one through a federal Highways Administration grant called BUILD. Both very competitive grants. We worked diligently with our congressional delegation, wrote letters, made phone calls, along with our RAFTA board doing the same. We finally received a number of grants that we've been pursuing for many years. So this project became alive, and paired with the funding that came with Destination 2040, we have over $60 million worth of construction currently underway or planned to be underway very soon here at our Glenwood maintenance facility. So phase 2, this is expanding our maintenance phase, so it's doubling our capacity of performing vehicle maintenance. This is under construction right now. And then phases 3, 4, 5, and 7 were the ones we just received those large grant awards for. And those 4 phases total about $50 million worth of construction, which will provide us over 60 indoor storage of over 60 buses. They'll add additional fuel lanes to our site. It provides for the ability for us to add a hydrogen fueling station if we're able to secure funding for that. It improves the site circulation, storage capabilities, maintenance capabilities. So really sets RAFTA up for the ability to be able to continue to serve the Roaring Fork Valley effectively, but also sets us up for what we do recognize as a growing need to be able to serve Colorado River Valley, as that is the area of Garfield County over the next 20 years is expected to grow by more than 65%. And we know that a lot of the workforce in the Roaring Fork Valley is going to be coming from Colorado River Valley. So this prepares us for our ability to be able to meet those needs. S8 and S9, these are, again, associated with that move study in Glenwood Springs. These are some of the questions that are being asked and evaluated of where we would locate an inline station when we expand or extend that BRT to downtown, and where we might locate a transit station similar to Ruby Park in Glenwood Springs. And then lastly, we have replacement of employee housing for RAFTA. This was put on hold this past year due to COVID, but we're just now bringing it back to life here. And how we're planning to approach this right now this next year is we're doing an evaluation of our various properties that RAFTA owns. We own several that are possibilities for potential housing, and we're evaluating those properties, reviewing the entitlement processes with the various communities, land use codes, and the programming that we have for housing to see which property makes most sense for RAFTA to move forward with first. So sorry if that was a lot of me talking. I apologize for that. I will, though, if you don't mind, I can share a few photos. I can figure out how to do that here. Sorry about that. Here's some of the stops. These are, I believe, stop improvements. You can see the paving, the asphalt work. This was at Two Rivers Road and Hillcrest Drive. This is Aspen. Here's Sagewood, where we replaced the old shelter, improved paving. We have Catherine's store. We repaved that whole parking lot as well. Here are some windscreens that we put up at some of our BRT stations to help block some of that wind that blows through those stations. Makes it pretty miserable. Here's some images of our new buses. The top photos are old ones. These are the new clean diesel buses, the blue ones there. These are some of our all battery electric buses that we have operating in Upper Valley. Here's an image of the signs and what were replaced. So these signs on the right illustrate the stop ID number, which routes serve that stop, and then information on how to text to get real-time bus arrival information. Some of the work on the trails here, bridge deck repairs, patching and paving along the trail. Here's our new fuel farm, and this is the fuel island that got replaced. And that's it. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to take any questions from yourself or members of the council.
Well, thanks, Kurt. I think maybe to tee up the questions, I think it's pretty fascinating. I mean, more than almost any governmental entity that we have in the Valley, you guys have the broadest perspective, operating everything from Rifle to Aspen. You have to see things in a holistic kind of environment, and it's pretty impressive to see how you have shouldered the brunt of COVID, operating sometimes as little as 25% capacity of our bus system, most of the time 50%. So this is a really difficult winter where operating expenses go up and ridership and fare box revenue declines. But these guys have done a whale of a job keeping this system going. So at any rate, if there are any questions, are there any questions about Kurt? Are there things that you wanted to know about mass transit, but we're always afraid to ask? This is a good time to see what's going on. I know I would have one. I'm really curious about the e-buses and what the state of that technology is, and whether we can look forward to a bright future with running e-buses in this valley, or is this still in a dream stage?
Well, I'm hopeful that this will be a reality for us. RAFTA has a goal to try to get 30% of its fleet to be all electric buses by 2030. I think that that's possible. It's not without its challenges, though. Right now, the technology, the battery capacity does not provide the type of range that would allow one of these buses to be a one-for-one replacement of a diesel bus. And that's what we're trying to figure out, how to get over that hurdle. There's some ideas and things that we're trying. We received grant funding for what's called an en-route charger, to where as the bus is in service, would have the ability to access this en-route charger and get what's called a quick charge off the grid to sort of top it off, to be able to allow that bus to continue and fulfill a full day's operation. So we're working through that. We actually have a working group established, and we're evaluating, because the 8 buses was part of a pilot, and we've identified evaluation criteria to evaluate that pilot and see what bus number 9 will look like. And we're not ruling out the possibility of hydrogen buses, fuel cell buses. These are basically electric buses, but instead of the batteries being charged from the grid, the batteries are being charged by hydrogen. So that is something that we're evaluating as well. Those are attractive because the range of those buses are much greater than just an all battery electric bus. So we're not ruling anything out at this point, but I do think that in the next, I would say even maybe in the next 5 years, we're going to have some significant progress in getting more electric buses out in our service.
Any questions for Kurt? Any discussion? David Knight.
Yeah, Kurt, thanks for the update. I had a question on the Down Valley side at Willits. I saw a note about potential parking spaces in the tree farm. So I just wanted to double click on that, see if you can get a little more information on the planning there. And then also, as far as capacity expansion in the Willits area for WeCycle, I mean, we're talking about parking, but there's also, I think, an opportunity given how much destination and origin there is from a last mile perspective around that BRT stop. Is there, planning to have more bike racks in general, or WeCycle?
Yeah. As far as the Down Valley Tree Farm, I've heard that there were discussions as part of some potential development opportunities that there may be some opportunity for expanded parking. It's not anything that is really on my radar in terms of what we're planning for in terms of expanded parking. There may be an opportunity through development that might create that. I can touch base with our planning director, David Johnson, to see if he knows more about that. I don't know if Susan, she may know more too. But that's the extent of what I know about the tree farm. As far as WeCycle expanding at that Willits location, yeah, I think that's probably certainly in the future of bike share expansion. And I know will probably be a part of this discussion with this planning process that we're having this year. Because we're looking at not only how do we get bike share into communities that don't have it, but how do we build upon successful bike share programs that are already out there in Basalt and Aspen. And the Willits area seems like a no-brainer for that.
Absolutely. Thanks.
I think turned the dial to blue yesterday. Is there any change? We are operating at 50% capacity for seating in the bus system right now. Does that go up with changing to blue, or are we still at 50%?
Well, that's a conversation that we're going to be having with our county public health directors. We're currently not operating under any restrictions on capacity. They've handed the state until April 16th. We were operating under a state mandate that required a 50% capacity of our buses. After April 16th, the state handed that decision back over to the counties. So right now for the spring season that we're in, we weren't going to make any changes, but we are planning to present some proposals to the Pickens County, Garfield County, and Eagle County public health directors to increase our capacity limits. We probably won't go to no restrictions. I wouldn't take it off the table completely, but I don't think we would go to no restrictions. But I think we will have a proposal to the public health directors to allow us to increase our capacity.
Encouraging to hear. Anybody else? Well, Kurt, thanks. Appreciate the info. A lot gone on, and Elise has a question, comment,
question. One of the things that came up in our Basalt master planning process was the idea of having either free bus fare within Basalt or a circulator bus. I didn't see anything like that in 2040. How about by 2050?
Well, I think there's opportunities for making some of those changes, even though it may not have been called out specifically in Destination 2040. I know we are preparing some fare changes that we'll be bringing forward to our board here in the coming months, particularly around youth fares. where we want to try to make our system much more accessible for youth. And we've heard several complaints from families that how it can become quite pricey for a family to travel on RAFTA when the youth fare isn't really discounted a whole lot from the adult fare. So that's something that I think we're going to be bringing forward as a possibility. We're reviewing our entire fare structure right now. And I think ideas like that of in-town fares may be, we may have a different approach to that to make the system more accessible. It is one of our goals within RAFTA's strategic plan is trying to remove some of these barriers and making our system more accessible to a broader range of our community. So those are definitely ideas that we want to be looking at and evaluating.
Yeah, I think there may be an opportunity to take that up under our Forward 20. It's a lot of dates here, but the Forward 2030 effort that we're going to take on, that might be something we want to talk about to see if we could consider that as one of the potential projects that we might fund. So I think it'd be really worthwhile talking about that in that context. Mm-hmm. So Ryan, do you want to comment on that at all?
This Ryan, I presume?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Darn. Yeah, no, I think that the, as Elise said, those were projects that were identified in the master plan. And so as we, work through the Basalt Forward 2030 project and hear back from the community on priorities, and then also since something like that's probably an ongoing funding versus a capital investment, you just have to weigh those as well to see if that's what makes the most sense for the community. And then the cost, of course, will weigh into that. Is that something that we, deal with in partnership with RAFTA out of our, general fund as an ongoing expense, or, do we need some other special funding via a property tax for that? So probably leave it there for now.
Yeah. Sounds good. Any other questions for Kurt? Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We have our regular meeting firing up here at 6 o'clock. It's 7 minutes before the hour. So I would suggest that we take a 5-minute break here and then reassemble at 6 o'clock and thank Kurt for the presentation. We'll welcome you back again. Look forward to that. That's I think a pretty informative way of tracking these projects, showing each project through the various stages of planning and design and engineering and construction. That's pretty, that's really pretty useful. I think we might want to consider doing something like that with our own capital projects. Makes a lot of sense. So appreciate you talking to us tonight. And if there are not further questions for Kurt, then we'll take a quick break and come back at 6 o'clock. Gary, is your hand up or you just scratch? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you almost just bought something there, the auction. So thanks, Kurt, again. And we'll see everybody back at 6 o'clock, about 5 minutes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Evening. It's welcome to the Town of Basalt Town Council meeting for Tuesday, April 27th, 2021. We will begin our meeting with a call to order and roll call. Pam, if you'd be so kind.
Absolutely. Let's begin with Ryan Slack. Sorry.
Here.
Thank you, Ryan. Gary Tenenbaum.
Here.
Thank you, Gary. Elise Hoddle.
Present.
Thank you, Elise. Bill Infante.
Here.
Thank you, Bill. David Knight.
Here.
Thank you, David. Glenn Drummond.
Here.
Thank you, Glenn. And Bill Kane.
Here.
The A team is present. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Our first order of business is to review and approve the consent agenda, which for this meeting consists of the minutes from our April 13th, 2021 council meeting. So I'd appreciate a motion for the consent agenda approval.
Mayor, I move the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Very good. So the consent agenda stands approved. Next order of business, and I know we have some folks that want to address council tonight, is a call to the public. And this is an opportunity for members of the public to address council. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Identify yourself, name and address when making comments. So I know we have some guests, Shannon and Asif Dori, I think, are on. With that, the floor is open. If you folks want to address council, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Asaf Dori, and I live here in Basalt for the last 5.5 years on 213 East Homestead Drive. I'm a very proud Habitat for Humanity homeowner, and I also sit on the Habitat board, volunteer around the town. I volunteer with an organization called Challenge America, which is here around town. I was born and raised in Israel. I was a deputy sheriff in Florida after the army in Israel in the first Gulf War. I got injured in the line of duty as a deputy sheriff in Florida. I deal a lot today with disabled vets as a part of my volunteer. And I'm an above the knee amputee, but that's not my biggest issue. My biggest problem is actually what's called CRPS, which is complex regional pain syndrome, which is a disorder of the nervous system after my injury. After I lost my leg, I actually had my leg amputated because of that disease, but it was too late. It's a disease that affects the whole leg, and it's severe pain, severe flare-ups. There's really nothing you can do about this disease. It's called the suicide disease. It's something I've been dealing with personally for a long time. I had 4 deputy sheriff friends commit suicide in the last year alone with everything that's been happening. And I've been dealing with suicidal thoughts and how to battle that. I'm blessed to have a daughter who's 12 years old. All this time dealing with the last 45 surgeries, I always focused on my daughter and be able to walk with her hand in hand. I was able to do that about 3 months ago, and I was crying. It was an amazing feeling. And then 2 days after, I found myself asking myself, what's now? What am I going to focus on right now? And that's how Mount Albert Challenge came to focus. We put together an incredible team. There's 4 of us. Shannon is my teammate. We met online. She actually lives in Wisconsin, in Madison, Wisconsin. She also suffers from CRPS. She's a United States Army veteran. She got injured in the line and as serving the Army. And she will explain a bit more what this means to her. In September 15, we're going to be climbing Mount Albert to show people that together through help of friends, community, and family, we can overcome any big mountain. That there's a better answer to suicide other than suicide. We want to share our tools. We want to share our ability to show that. We actually applied for a grant through the town to the mental health aspect. We're in the process of fundraising for that. But we want to show that together, and reaching out for help is okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say that you're not doing well, and to reach out to friends, family, members in the community to be actually that it's okay to ask for help. We're blessed that Chief Knott's actually going to be joining us on this adventure and climbing up the mountain. And I will pass the floor to Shannon, who is my teammate, and she'll just say what it means for her.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to meet you all. I am very honored to be a part of this challenge. As Asaf mentioned, I am a U.S. Army vet. I too have lost a lot of people to suicide. There was a time in my life, probably after 2007, it was one after the other after the other. And I too have struggled with mental health issues relating to PTSD and then again relating to CRPS. And my biggest passion behind this is we have 3 of like the toughest, hardest guys on our team, and they are all willing to put out there that they have not always necessarily been okay as we know it. And so for them to come out and put themselves up front, I want to help be a part of this voice to help people reach out and connect with each other and kind of erase some of the stigmas, especially within the veteran world. I would say there's just a lot of judgment and all of these different things that we're kind of facing behind it. With COVID, suicide ratings have just increased and increased, and veterans are struggling even more. And then more and more resources are limited because of the increasing pull. So I believe we are all hoping together to not only inspire people to reach out, but also show that when you work together, you can accomplish anything. And with all of us being disabled physically in some way, overcoming everything we possibly can, doing it together is the message that we want to send out, that you're not alone. You can do amazing things and you can work for it. And I believe in Challenge America, if you aren't familiar, they have a very high percentage actually go into their programs. Instead of like other programs like Wounded Warrior Project, where sometimes only 24 cents of the dollar is going to programming. So overall, I feel like it's an incredible opportunity. I'm eager to be a voice for people that need it for mental health and for CRPS. So I thank you all for your consideration.
Great. Is there, are there specific ideas as to how we as municipal government here can help out? Are there,
we need help. I'm sorry, Asaf.
No, go ahead, Shannon.
Just in thinking, we need support from people willing to put it out there. So meaning, as far as like town council goes, I wish there were places that would say like it's a safe spot to come in and ask for help, or or something like that. Like I know for like Alzheimer's in particular, they have dementia friendly type restaurants and stuff like that. There's different places where I feel like if people just could have that option to reach out, I think that would be moving. Asaf, I don't know what else you wanted to add to that.
I'm saying we do that now as far as fielding phone calls and helping one another. We are in the process of fundraising for a personal goal to get to that. And just Challenge America, 83 cents of every dollar goes to programming. And I'm a volunteer with Challenge America. I've been a volunteer now for about 4.5 years. So it's been a blessing for us. I know they did some stuff with the police department during the beginning of COVID also with some of the makeathons. And if with just the talent, it can help us, get the word out and what we're trying to achieve, and wave when they see us walking training.
Wow. Questions from council, Elise?
This isn't a question, but I had a conversation with Robin Waters. She told me what you guys are up to, and I think it's really amazing, and I'm in full support. And one of the things that we talked about that the council could do is just have a proclamation in support of this endeavor and in support of mental health. And so I'd like to throw that out there as a possibility.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would certainly get behind that personally, but David's got a thumbs up. Glenn's good with it. Yeah, I think that's something we could certainly do. It's a great idea and something we ought to do. So
I'm definitely in favor of the proclamation. I would also like to note, like how much money we've given to like Aspen Hope Center. I mean, this is a great resource for this exact kind of situation. I mean,
Yeah.
I've dealt with it. Let's acknowledge, you know, there's a ton of money there. Reach out to those people.
Well, I would suggest that as you move forward and formulate your plans, that you stay in touch with our town manager, who has smiling faces there in the upper right part of the screen here. So you know Ryan, and you know the sentiment of our council. So you know, this is a very inspirational thing you guys are doing, and you know, I think you got a pretty sympathetic group here. So stay in touch with us and let us know where you need help. So it's
that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And best of luck to you. This is you know, this is great stuff. So anybody else want to chip in here? Thanks for talking to council tonight, and we'll stay in touch with you.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
And Mayor, I just want to ask Pam, I don't think anybody else had flagged that they wanted to speak during the public comment period. The first page of the agenda that's online tells you how, gives you instructions on how to access the meeting. And I don't think anybody else has indicated that they'd like to speak, right, Pam?
That's correct. I have no one sitting in the attendees section, and I have no emails indicating.
And I think that Caesar had put up on the screen for grassroots the call number and the webinar ID, which is 924-9706-5213. So I think we're okay to pass through our public comment area.
All righty. So with that will conclude our call to the public, and we will turn to our next order of business, which are comments from mayor and council reports. So floor is open for comments, reports from council. So anybody have thoughts? Elise and Bill.
Just a quick update that yesterday, CORE, Community Office for Resource Efficiency, went to Aspen City Council to request for their 2022 budget. It is smaller than previous budgets. As we know, rent funds are, we're putting ourselves out of business, which is the idea. And also they're kind of diverting funds to different things. I know that they're going to be working with Eagle County to try and service the non-Pitkin County portion of the valley, but just kind of a heads up that if anybody has any great, ideas for fundraising or fee for service, we're still open to suggestions and ideas.
Great. I saw the story, and it's kind of gratifying to see that there were 3 innovative all-electric projects that were highlighted in their presentation: Basalt Vista, Takaw, and Ski Company Affordable Housing, which are really
and ironically, none of them are in Pitkin County.
Basalt Vista is.
Oh, that's right. Basalt Vista is.
Yeah, but it's it's I think we're on the leading edge of something here that could be really important, I think, as part of climate action. So electrification, I thought that was a very gratifying report. I don't have much. I went to the Basalt Glenwood Springs High School football game, and despite all of my cheering, at the Basalt Longhorns were downed by Glenwood Springs, but now they're in the finals and are in the playoffs. So they're this is this very unusual spring football thing, but Basalt's doing great on the high school athletic front right now. So other comments from council reports. Bill Infante.
Just a couple follow-up things. I did want to see if there was any further discussion related to Elise's suggestion last week about doing another offsite sometime this spring or summer, just to kind of collect our shared thoughts about the future, about strategy, and it would dovetail nicely with the Forward 2030 plan. So if we could talk about that, that'd be great. Also wanted to see what the news was on the Capital Needs Committee. Just kind of curious who's been nominated and appointed by each of our committees and by the chamber. And I know time is very short, but I think it's an important committee that'll valuably inform our decision making. And then the last thing is just a little report out. I had gone up to Missouri Heights today, familiar with Ascendigo, which is the truly wonderful organization that provides incredible service to children on the autism spectrum. They've been working out of a variety of sites between kind of Rifle and up towards Castle Creek, but they have now set their sights on a 126-acre parcel up on Missouri Heights, and they're moving forward with the planning. And I was kind of interested because of our own efforts in the town of Basalt to promote greater investment in mental health and in service for young folks. And so from that perspective, I kind of figured I'd go walk around and see what was going on. There are a lot of folks who are legitimately concerned about water and transportation and fire, but frankly, you may know, what's his face, the mayor of Carbondale, I want to say Dan Richardson.
Dan Richardson.
is the COO of Ascendigo, did a great job of addressing the concerns. I don't think people took them all on board. They seem fairly kind of steadfast in their own views and somewhat resistant to much of the evidence that he was providing, but he addressed the concerns about water. They have more than sufficient water to supply their needs, far greater than would be the case if the full complement of houses were built under the subdivision that would otherwise occupy those acres. In terms of transit, the number of vehicle trips per day would be less under Ascendigo than under the competing use for the large homes. And so, how people take this on board, don't know, but it will go to the Glenwood County Commissioners sometime early in May was what I thought I heard, and they will then make a decision. But the addendum is the purposes for which Ascendigo will use the property, notably education and the nurturing and mentorship of children, is already approved under the zone plan. That was a big point of misunderstanding as well. The county commissioners are not voting to rezone, they're simply approving the proposal as presented. But I don't think there's any action for us other than to say, if Ascendigo is permitted to move forward, it will help address the provision of mental and health services in the valley, which is something that we have taken up in the past. And that's about it for me.
Yeah, I don't know if Brian wanted to comment on the composition of our committee.
Yeah, well, I don't have the list in front of me, but I can at least tell the council and those listening that staff has been getting those nominations. And so we, at this point in time, I believe have most all of them secured. And so we can provide that final list here in the next few days. We do have our kickoff meeting with that group on the 17th. So we'll be getting into the thick of things here pretty soon. And as a comment, I'd like to just get a little more feedback from council. We did not have an offsite sort of strategic planning session planned as part of this program. We usually do an offsite as part of the budget. We have our work plan pretty specifically laid out and didn't have, strategic planning updates other than working on the environment section, both with Holy Cross and Core, which we intend to follow up on. But we do have council very much integrated into the process, which we intended to be a very public process of, working with the committee, putting out surveys, hopefully some in-person sessions with the public, and then following up at each one of those steps to get council, feedback and such. So, I think that unless, I hear otherwise from the majority of council, we'd probably need to think of retooling some things in our plan of attack for the Basalt Forward 2030. So we can perhaps take that up at a different time, unless you wanted to have some sort of discussion about it now.
I'm going to be in favor of the process. You guys spell it out. Let's follow it. Let's do it. Let's not try to micromanage.
I think you're misconstruing. I guess over the past couple of years, last year being the most formal, had an opportunity for council to simply get together and discuss strategy and vision. We didn't really get to the strategy and vision. It was much more of an administrative and operational review. But I think there is a lot of value to having that type of opportunity, particularly when we haven't met in person. So again, I'm going to echo Elise's suggestion and add my own 2 cents, which is I think it's a real good idea. And whether you want to tie it to Forward 2030 or not is irrelevant, since that kind of seems like it's mostly looking at buildings and stuff and not conceptual things like the prospective investment in mental and human health, or in arts and culture, or economic development for that matter. So, again, I have always been a strong proponent of appropriate and reasonable communication, and I think that goes well beyond what we do every 2 weeks in town council.
Gary?
I'm looking at this as you move forward with this 2030 process, we're going to have to really look upon what pieces of that puzzle we want to put out to the public. So to me, strategically, that's a major strategic forward plan that we will have to weigh in on sometime, before we put this on the ballot. So, I don't really need to get together and just talk like other vision, because we have a work plan, we have a strategic plan, and we have this 2030 thing going on. I think we need to focus our getting together time on what do we feel are the biggest priorities to put in that 2030 plan, because that is the vision for Basalt going forward in the future. So I do look forward to getting together with everyone to discuss those things.
And I think we have that programmed into the process, and it wasn't sort of at this point an offsite meeting with that thought of redoing the strategic plan or vision, but we are necessarily going to have to sit down with council after we get a lot of input, and really kind of chew on some of these things and prioritize, and we'll have the help from the public with that feedback. So maybe we're saying the same thing here. I think we just suggested that it's in a public forum, and we would certainly be doing our retreat later in the summer as we usually do. So if we're all on the same page with that, then I think we're good.
and that retreat is in person?
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, barring any weird snapback of COVID,
Okay.
that would be the intent. And last year COVID was going on, and we managed to do it in person and just made sure that we were being careful. And I think that went off pretty well.
Yeah, no, I just think that there's value in us sharing a vision, in person, not, impersonally over the virtual network.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, I think this is going to be a pretty fluid situation with the Forward 2030 and requirement for meetings and work. I mean, I can easily envision at least a work session environment outside on the lawn, to kind of review progress. And I think we ought to remain open for that and see if if there's a bigger agenda for bigger ideas to also get included in that. So I wouldn't give up on it, but clearly the 2030 is going to be our primary focus here for a while. So.
And Bill, what we'll do is bring back, if it's okay, at the next council meeting, we'll obviously, by then you'll have some information, but perhaps we could, just invite the members of the committee just to tune in and say hi and just have a short presentation on that at the next council meeting, so we can all start to get acquainted with each other in that particular role.
Yeah. Additional comments, council comments, David?
Just a question. Are we still on track for getting back together in person in June at this point? That'll be really, I think, get a lot of the benefits that we're alluding to here.
That's what we're intending. Pam and I have a meeting with our grassroots folks this week. It's already, we've put it on their radar to start investigating a hybrid option. I think certainly the council, and we could do it no problem as we used to. The question I think we're all going to need to address is whether we want to continue to have a hybrid model where some people can tune in from, outside. And that's in part a technology issue and in part, a question to council on, how you'd like to play it. And then I would ask Jeff, as we move into the future, I mean, traditionally, it's been, you want council members present to be able to vote. And this has kind of turned that upside down. What is sort of the legal side of things in Colorado looking at as far as that goes? Maybe it's just open for each community to make that determination. But David, we are intending to go back on that first meeting in June, and we would have council and staff, and as I said last time, if the public wanted to come in physically, we may have to, kind of meter them in or have a call-in option if they had a public comment or something.
Hey, Ryan, on that, I'd love to figure out how we can continue to do a hybrid model, because it would be great to have a way for people to continue to be able to do public comment from their house and not have to come in to council for public comment. And on any item, I've seen it with Pickens County, and it's just if we want to be as transparent and open to the public as possible, a hybrid model will be a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and we're as I said, we're meeting on that this Thursday, and I think we just have to be prepared that it could be a learning process for us all, as was coming on to Zoom in the first place, just trying to get our feet under us. And we could start off, I think, doing it, and if worse comes to worse, you got to call in. But hopefully we can do better than that. So more to come on that. We'll keep you guys updated on that.
I agree with Gary on that. It just makes things more accessible for everybody, and the benefit that can be long lasting or forever, even depending on the legal part.
Yeah, it may, I mean, this whole thing may have just turned that corner, and that's sort of the future.
Okay. So if there are no additional comments, we are ready for our manager's report.
Yeah, so just two quick things from me tonight. The first is before COVID hit, this was at the first quarter of 2020, staff had been working with an outside consultant and had a salary and benefits study prepared. And when COVID hit, just the unknowns of our revenues and whether that would stabilize or not, we put that on hold. But we do have that document, and we are in the process of updating it. As you may recall, this year during budget time, we did and were able to institute some of the benefits side of that. So we did provide a $75 benefit for health and wellness. We provided some reimbursement. We increased the reimbursement, for example, on continuing ed, and we were able to provide 2 personal days to be used out of your existing sick leave. So I think we've really made ourselves competitive in that realm. And then, just wanted to bring back the other half of that. And so just thought I'd put that out there, that we're working on it, and we'll bring that forward to council. And then I think we're aiming for the end of June for that process to be completed. And then I just wanted to provide an update that for our Basalt mini grants, as I call them, that we had our council members, Knight, Hoddle, and Drummond helped us work through those back in the fall. We held back a little bit of money there. We were subsequently able to provide a grant to the middle school for their music program, which is a really awesome program. And then just last week, I got a call from the school, and they were they're doing their teacher appreciation, and they had $700 that they were going to be used to distribute out to the teachers and to staff at the school. And we're exploring ways to get that money into local businesses. So we're picking my brain about Basalt Bucks. And while it wasn't practical to bring back Basalt Bucks for that effort, I did offer to match their $700 for that teacher appreciation. So all of the faculty and staff at the elementary school will get $20 in local gift certificates to use at local businesses. So just an update on that. That's all I have for you, Mayor.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Manager. Are any questions for Ryan before we move on to presentations? All right, thank you. So our first order of business under presentations, we have Chris Beezer on hand. I see him there. I assume you drank the whiskey in all those jugs that are behind you there on that wall, Chris?
Yes, right before this, actually.
So Chris, I've
got a little bit of a collection of beer growlers from around the valley.
Good deal. So Chris is going to talk to us about a proclamation for Arbor Day and Arbor Day project. So you've got the floor, sir.
Thank you, Bill. So if you don't know me, my name is Chris Beiser. I am the town arborist and horticulturist and gardener, and just kind of the outdoor landscape guy that everybody calls for anything tree or plant related in the town. We're going to be celebrating National Arbor Day this Friday, April 30th. There's actually 2 Arbor Day dates for the state of Colorado. So we've got our National Arbor Day this Friday, which is going to be what we're going to be mainly observing for our plantings. But we do also have a state Arbor Day, which was on April 16th. It's usually the third week of April. And that's usually the unofficial start of planting for trees that they consider a good date to start doing that. So with that in mind, we're just going to really get rolling on a lot of our tree planting plans that I have planned so far for this season. I've got 2 official Arbor Day trees being planted for this event. I've got one going in at Town Hall. We had to remove an old prunus tree behind the art base building, the old art base building. So we're going to be planting an Amur chokeberry or chokecherry. And that's actually going to be getting the official Arbor Day designation tag when I get the tags in. And then we're also going to be planting a native box elder over by the Conservancy in the back by the Old Pond Park. Additionally, I've been working with the 5th grade class at Basalt Middle School to head a cleanup of the downtown and neighborhood areas around town. So I'm going to be giving them a little talk on Thursday, that'll be the 29th, to go ahead and give them some tree facts, get them excited about Arbor Day, and just April's kind of like an Earth month in general, with Earth Day also being in the same month. And then we're going to be doing a 2-hour walk around in various parts of town, doing trash cleanup and kind of doing tree facts as we walk around as a little bit of a nature walk. It'll be a good chance for kids to get outside and do some activities, especially since things have been a bit lacking in that department with COVID this past season. So I've been working with Kate Snyder over there, a 5th grade teacher, and she says the students are really excited to get out there and get started on a little project. In addition, I'm going to be doing tree planting around town. So this is kind of the official start of planting season. You'll see I'm going to be planting the berm on Valley Road. It's going to be getting about 10 new trees and shrubs that are going in there, focusing on natives, focusing on drought tolerance, drought resistance, because we really should be focusing on low water usage on all these things. So that's kind of in the back of my mind every time we're looking at new tree cultivars to be putting in. And then I'm going to be looking into adding a few new trees to spruce up the town hall entryway in coming weeks here. So we've got some old junipers that have kind of grown out of their space, and I'm going to be looking to spruce those up. No pun intended, to give that a little bit of a facelift. But other than that, I encourage everybody to get out there, and this is the best time to really start getting on your garden, doing your spring cleanup if you haven't already, and getting going with any trees that you'd like to get installed.
Excellent. I think, how would we want to endorse the proclamation? Can this just be a voice vote to endorse the proclamation and authorize the mayor to sign it? What's the procedure on that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you could, council can approve by motion and take a voice vote to approve the proclamation as presented in the packet.
Okay. Anyone care to go out on that? How's this for a pun? Anyone want to go out on a limb here and yuck, authorize the approval of the proclamation for Arbor Day? Glenn, you got it.
Mayor, I move to that we adopt the proclamation as presented in the packet.
Great.
Second.
All right. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Thank you. Did you have a comment, Glenn?
No.
Okay. Great. So that covers that piece. The next under is the draft of pre-audit information for 2020. This is going to be Ryan and Christy.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just because I think it's easier for people to see visually, at least it is for me when I'm going through financial information. All I did here is really just depict just the summary level. I think the most important thing for council to be, wondering about where our results ended for last year is really where we are comparatively with our unrestricted fund balance. That's really it's a really good indicator of financial health and just an overall picture of how everything landed. The auditors are going to go through a lot of additional detail and you're going to get a full report. of the audit in June. So June 8th, they're going to come and present the audit. So just to summarize, the excess for the general fund specifically, excess of revenue over expenses is $1,715,000, but we moved the public works purchase of that facility to 2021 fiscal year. So I had to take that out because we're transferring that into a new fiscal year. So then we have an excess of $240,000 from last year. During our 2021 budget process, we projected a $485,000 deficit. So we're actually favorable $725,000 roughly, okay? So we have a couple of recommended uses, one of which actually both of these are on the agenda for later in a supplemental budget. The affordable housing unit over at Riverside, BC, and the Basalt Forward 2030 project, those expenditures for budget additions. So $443,000 we are looking at utilizing of that 725 right now, but I know that Bach is doing some more work on potential Estats Mill units, or excuse me, lots and other items. So, but that's just the summary. I just want to see if anybody had any questions.
Questions?
Yeah. I had a little bit of difficulty following kind of the logic. I mean, I understand what you're doing calculating the 725, but by virtue of not being in a deficit doesn't mean that we have funds to spend. So if the excess of revenues in 2020 minus the general fund public works is 240, that's the amount of money we have to spend. What am I missing here?
Well, if you guys want, what I could do, let me see, I'm going to stop my share for just 1 second here. And I can show you, it's a comparison compared to where, what fund balance I was showing in the 2021 budget. So that's the last time I presented the unrestricted fund balance estimate. And so it's 725,000 better than the number that I reported in the 2021 budget for 2020 projection. So let me see if I could get that really quick. Sorry.
So we were, if I understand correctly, we were still going to have a positive fund balance. It's just that we're further in the black than you had anticipated. That's
correct. That's exactly right. Because what I do is compare it based upon what I told you the last time. I think it was roughly around 2.3 million in available fund balance after you took out for your committed fund balance for your 40% minimum and all those things. So then it would be 725,000 roughly higher than that. So that number is the amount we have available to spend. I don't want to say that that's just all spendable at once. Obviously, it takes a lot of conversation and looking at strategic vision, et cetera. But that number is really important to keep in mind.
Okay. Other questions for Christy? Pre-audit info. Thank you, Christy. Helpful to see. So are you looking for any specific direction or feedback? I think we all get it and understand. So
it's just a precursor for council as we lead into the audit. Christy's done a tremendous amount of work in the last few months getting ready for the audit, which is why these numbers are able to be updated and just more, exact for you now, as opposed to, a few months back when, we still had, sales tax coming in, et cetera. So, so these numbers are much tighter.
Great. Okay, thank you. Next item are council actions. First order of business is item 8A, first reading ordinance number 3, series of 2021. An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving a contract to buy and sell real estate with Howard DeLuca for the purchase of Unit 333, Riverside Plaza, Lot BC condominiums, Basalt, Colorado.
And I'll take the lead on introducing this item. Town council has expressed an interest in expanding the town's affordable housing inventory, and an opportunity presented itself related to a residential condo unit in the Riverside BC building. And just so everyone knows, the Riverside Plaza BC building is on Two Rivers Road. It's part of the Ute Center complex. It's the easternmost building along Two Rivers Road there. There are commercial spaces on the first floor, and on the second and third floor, there are 8 residential condominium units. The town owns 7 of those 8 units now and leases them to town employees and qualified employees under the Basalt Community Housing Guidelines. The town has a right of first refusal on the 8th unit, which is the one owned by Howard DeLuca. And we learned that he was going to put that unit on the market, and we're able to have some discussions with him and present an offer at council's direction to purchase that unit. And that is what is presented to council tonight as part of this ordinance. A little bit more about that contract. The seller, again, is Howard DeLuca, and he was listing or going to list this property with a condition that it be leased. Let me backtrack a little bit. Howard owns the unit and he leases the unit, and he wanted to list the unit with the condition that it continue to be leased to his current tenant for a 2-year period of time. Now, when the town owns units and it leases them to persons other than town employees, it leases them pursuant to the Basalt Community Housing Guidelines. And in this case, that would be likely the preference of the town to lease to a qualified employee under a Category 3 income and rental rate. And so we included a condition in the contract that, if possible, that would be our preferred course. And in speaking with the seller and the seller's tenant, it does appear that the existing tenant would qualify as a qualified employee under the community housing guidelines, and there would be an opportunity for the existing tenant to fit within what the town would like to, how the town would like to lease the unit pursuant to a 1-year lease, and still reserve the right for future uses by the town. One other thing that was in the contract was, although this would be a cash purchase, it included a condition for an appraisal. We're learning that getting a timely appraisal, and I guess this was really expected, but getting a timely appraisal is going to be a challenge. So I know town staff's reached out to a number of appraisers to try to get one scheduled consistent with the contract timelines. It may not be possible. The appraisal was included just to confirm the value of the property. The town's staff's review and expectation that this is a fair purchase price for the unit at $360,000. However, we'll keep working on trying to get that appraisal squared away, but it may be the case that as an alternate, a broker's opinion of value or some alternate analysis of the valuation of the property may be appropriate, but that would be, we would come back to town council with more information on that at second reading. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward transaction, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions of council for Jeff, Elise, and Gary?
Just so that the public understands better, because this is sort of a convoluted situation, can you please reiterate why this would be better purchased by the town than to go to free market?
Sure. So there's a few restrictions related to this property that make it particularly more prudent for the town to own than perhaps just another employee. Based on the type of building, it being a mixed-use commercial and residential building, there are some limitations on Fannie and Freddie funding on mortgages. And so it becomes a difficult property to obtain a loan on for an individual purchasing the property. It's not an issue that the town would face, of course. So that's one additional motivator. Given that this particular unit also makes sense for the town, given its ownership interest in the remainder of the building. And those are a couple of the other reasons why it is particularly well suited for the town.
Thank you.
And Christy and Ryan, if there are any other things I missed, feel free to add them.
You know, the one thing I was going to say is that Bach did have the discussion on this, the purchase of this unit, and they were supportive, subject to all of the due diligence coming through okay.
Well, this is a deed restricted unit. There's no circumstance under which it would go into free market anyways. I mean, I mean, it may not be operated for the benefit of the town or town employee, but it would still stay in the deed restricted affordable housing camp.
So, and I'll let Susan correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we just got the title work this afternoon, which I haven't had an opportunity to review yet, but I don't think the deed, I do not believe it's deed restricted in the sense that only resident occupied, in the sense that there's a restriction for resident occupying it, or some other income restriction for ownership. However, the town, there is a restriction that includes right of first refusal to the benefit of the town that ensures that we have the ability to try to keep it within that affordable housing pool that is owned by the town. And Susan, feel free to correct that if I misstated anything.
You're muted.
It's really called a resident occupied home. And under those restrictions for the BC building, it has to be a person that works in the employment area, or a business can own it that has that wants to rent it to a.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
But I do want to add that our place that we were vulnerable with our RO units was really in Willits Town Center, and because the people couldn't get financing, and they could get Fannie Mae, they could get government-backed mortgages that were a lot less. The council was very receptive to removing that deed restriction, so they're a little bit more vulnerable. And hopefully, in this case, units aren't as expensive because there is a cap that they can increase each year. Unlike the Willits units, but it's our policy that we have that's adopted by resolution that really sets that category 3 affordable housing when we own the unit, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just for sake of the public and the council, Elise is having some computer problems. She had to drop off. She'll pop back on here.
Okay. Other questions, comments on this first reading? Gary?
The only thing I want to add is, like, being HOA president of Valley Pines HOA, which we have 9 employee housing units. It's a very convoluted, it doesn't make a lot of sense process to get this done. We should buy it.
Okay. Well, that sounds like the wisdom. Gary.
Jeff, I had a question. Do we have an appraisal contingency in this? We can just waive, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we don't have to, because in the end, this is pretty similar to other properties, and it's pretty easy to know what the value is here. This is not a free market unit that we're just buying off of the street, or an open space property that we have to worry so much about. So, you know, we're trying to deal with appraisals now too, and they're taking extremely long times to get. And I wouldn't want to hold this one up to do it. So I'm happy to waive it if need be, to get this thing closed. And I was, just to give an update on, like, I was here for a lot of these purchases over the time, and it is amazing to me, you know, this was a different time when these were approved, and the chimes changed. The Great Recession changed the ability for mortgage companies to be able to, or not the ability, but the willingness for mortgage companies to actually give people these mortgages. And so this time we're not seeing actual people, town of Basalt residents coming in and asking us and begging us to buy this because they can't get out from under it. So I just believe with the town owning them all, it's a nice block of affordable housing units that we will forever be able to, have some local people living, and it gets out of that kind of financial craziness of the mixed use building, the HOA problems, and you name it. So anyway, I'm in favor of this.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 3, series of 2021 on first reading.
Mayor, I move the town council approve ordinance number 3, series of 2021 on first reading and set public hearing and second reading for May 11th, 2021.
Is there a second? All right, been moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Absolutely. Let's begin with Bill Infante.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. Bill Kane.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan. Gary Tenenbaum.
Yes.
Thank you, Gary. Elise Hoddle.
Yes.
Thank you, Elise. David Knight.
Yes.
Thank you, David. And Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Thank you, Glenn. Motion carries.
All right, thank you. The next order of business is item 8B, first reading ordinance number 4, series of 2021. Ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, amending the 2021 budget and providing for a supplemental appropriation related to Basalt Forward 2030, to CAW contribution, and purchase of Unit 333 in Riverside Plaza, BC condominiums. Budget amendment ordinance. Christy?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to share my screen here. I like to show things, just kind of depict them financially, so you guys could see it. So as the ordinance states, this is recommending a supplemental budget for a couple of items that we've recommended to you from the beginning to the year to now. And it's been quite a busy year already, but we just want to try to stay on top of that and make sure that we're all apprised of what that really means financially. So we're keeping in step with that as well. So the first thing I'll just kind of focus in on is the TACA additional funding under the first item under expenses, that additional $110,000 that was per that resolution passed earlier this year from the beginning RETA balance. So that's just an additional expense. That one's pretty straightforward. The Basalt Forward 2030, there's $82,000 that we were looking at spending that was not as a part of the original budget. I lined that out on the bottom of the Exhibit A that's attached to the ordinance for your review and just as a remembrance of what that looked like and what that included. Along with the Basalt Forward 2030, that we have to also look at where the Cushing-Terrell contract is coming from for Basalt Forward, and that contract value was $126,200. We have Midland Streetscapes. We were looking at taking some funding from there, as well as the initial facility needs study, both of which were in the budget for 2021. So there's no net increase in expenses. We've just transferred some monies, but because of the dollar amounts, I think it's good to show those in an ordinance for council's approval. And then last but not least, you see a lot of numbers for 361,000 here in and out, but really what I'm doing is I'm transferring monies to the restricted fund for our affordable housing because I think it's really important for council and the public to know how much we're spending on affordable housing, and that is in our restricted fund. So that's why it would be shown as a transfer out and then a transfer into our restricted fund and then being spent out of our restricted funding for affordable housing. So that's how that would be financed, is through that unrestricted fund balance to memorialize that. Any questions?
Any questions on the budget amendment for those projects? Discussion, questions? If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 4, series of 2021 on first reading.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 4, series of 2021 on first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for May 11th, 2021.
Second.
All right, been moved and seconded. Pam, if you would please call the roll.
Happily. Let's begin with Elise Hoddle.
Sorry, I have to unmute in 2 places to make it work. Yes.
Sorry, Elise, thank you for that. Gary Tenenbaum?
Yes.
Thank you, Gary. David Knight?
Yes.
Thank you, David. Ryan Slack?
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan. Bill Kane?
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. Glenn Drummond?
Yes.
Thank you, Glenn. And Bill Infante?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Brings us to item 8C. This is resolution number 19, series of 2021, dealing with face coverings. Resolution of the Town Council, Town of Basalt, Colorado, adopting an amended public health order regarding face coverings. So, Ryan, I would appreciate if you could bring us up to date as to where we are, what options may exist.
Sure. So basically, this is an extension of our existing face covering resolution, and we are proposing at this time to put it into place until our first meeting in June. A couple things of note: at the end of next month, May, on or around May 27th, the state is going to be rolling back their COVID restrictions and putting the responsibility of coming up with restrictions or not on local governments, namely the counties. We believe that for the most part, from what I know, I'll learn more in the coming days, but Eagle County is going to be rolling back many of the restrictions, as are Pitkin County, and we, in light of that, think that continuing to that first meeting in June will allow us to understand where the counties are with regard to face covering requirements, indoors or outdoors, and that'll help this council to decide at that time, do we want to, just go back to with align with what the counties are doing, or do we want to, maintain what we have in place? And so that's essentially where we are, Mayor. I think we're going to be getting to a point in the not too distant future. I'm not saying by June 8th, but where it's going to be sort of no mandate either way. It's just sort of people taking, whatever precaution they feel they need to for their own protection. I don't know if June 8th will be that time for this council to make that decision, but hopefully we'll be more informed on good next steps. And I will say, I got an email from the county manager today, and I believe the number was up to 62% of the county is now fully vaccinated. And so they're reaching that critical mass of 70%. that they were aiming for, which gets them to that herd immunity within the community. So we're getting there. They are now targeting specific employers and doing away with the mass vaccination clinics, really trying to get it into local clinics and trying to get the word out just to keep bumping up those numbers as best they can. So with that, staff does recommend just continuing this for that duration, and we'll reassess at that time.
So while this indicates we would continue till June, there's nothing to prevent us from coming back if we have clear direction from Pitkin and the state of Colorado and Eagle County relative to face coverings. We can amend this at a point in the future. So, so this is essentially a continuation until we learn a little bit more.
That's right, Mayor.
Okay. Discussion, council? Elise.
I'm just curious which county, when you say 62%, I don't think I heard which county.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're probably right. I had John Peacock's face in my head and didn't mention that was in Pitkin County. That was the
So yeah, I notice our incidents case reporting is really down in both counties. So this will be interesting to watch. And certainly June gives us time to kind of know where we are and have a more specific plan for the summer months, outdoor dining and all the summer activities that we're going to have. So other discussion, questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve resolution number 19, which is a continuation of our face covering ordinance or public health. Yes.
May I move that the town council approve resolution number 18 series of 2021 as presented.
Is there a
Could I
second?
correct that to resolution 19? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm reading it as it says. All right. I move the town council approve resolution number 19 series of 2021 as presented.
Sorry, typo, my fault. Thank you, Elise.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Resolution, we still have to have a roll call on this. So.
Yes. Okay. All right, let's begin with Gary Tenenbaum.
Yes.
Thank you, Gary. Bill Infante.
Yes.
Thank you. David Knight.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Kane.
Yes.
Thank you. Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you. Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Thank you. And Elise Huddle.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Right. Unless there are others, I think that concludes our business for this evening. So thanks, everyone. Don't have any closing remarks, Ryan?
I have something I forgot to mention during the manager's report. And Susan, I might just ask that you unmute yourself for this one. We wanted to get council direction on an item. So the Mid-Valley Planning Commission that is, represents Eagle, I'm sorry, the Roaring Fork Valley side of Eagle County. They have a few vacancies, I believe it is, and they are asking for input as they usually do, and they have I believe it's 9 people. I'm probably going to get this all wrong, so I'm going to have Susan just correct me. 8. I see Glenn throwing his fingers up. Well, so they have a number of people, and there are 3 of those people that specifically live in Basalt. And usually we don't get to appoint somebody, but we can make a recommendation. And so what we thought we would do at a staff level would be to interview the 3 folks that are from Basalt. And so that would be Susan and James and I, and then make a recommendation to the council on that. And then, you know, basically have them, you know, come into that meeting and talk about, you know, whatever council would inquire, any questions, thoughts, concerns, and we could forward that recommendation to Eagle County from there. It's not a requirement, but if we wanted to, you know, have a say in that, that could be something we would do. And Susan, do you want to correct me on how many spots there are? There were 1 alternate, 2.
Yeah, they have some people going off and people coming on, and so they're potentially making an alternate, 1 or 2 alternate, depending on who gets appointed to the full position, and they have a couple full positions. And just a kind of a note, we have this funky IGA that dates, I think, back from the 1980s, and when the Roaring Fork Valley Regional Planning Commission was established, and it gives the town council the ability to make a recommendation, but obviously the county commission is the one that makes the appointment. So over time, sometimes they take our recommendation and sometimes they don't. In this particular situation, the timing of the advertising kind of got was a little different. And so I think Eagle County would like to move forward. So I think it would help. 1, I don't know that it really behooves us to make a big project out of it because we're not the final say in the application. So we talked about a couple different ways of doing it, and we thought, you know, let's have staff interview, since we actually have folks that are within the town limits. Let us interview them and make a recommendation to the town council. And then if you don't like what we did, then we can kind of regroup. I guess that's kind of what we thought of the most reasonable thing without making it a big project for the town council.
Is Temple still chairing that commission?
She is, but her term is actually she's not reapplying.
Yeah,
so
she
gave
it up. She's not going to do it.
Oh.
So we lost Charles Sprickert and we lost Temple Glacier.
Oh, that's tough.
So it would be good to have town council give their input to somebody from this side of the valley. There are currently 8 people. My understanding, I just talked to Temple about this today, but there are currently 8 people who are applying to get on that board.
Okay. All right. Comments, questions on that, guys? On Commission.
Are you guys accepting nominations, and when do you expect to sit down with the three of you guys on staff and make a decision or call the field?
I guess we had advertised it on our webpage. Haven't got anybody yet for the what we thought was just the alternate position. We were going to take from their applications. Were due last week, and we were going to take from the list that we got from Eagle County.
Well, looks like Glenn is watching that pretty carefully. So Glenn, if you want to keep us informed or coach us as to how we can best get the best outcome, I appreciate it.
Will do.
So maybe what we do is we consult with Glenn, and if we take a different approach, we'll regroup. Does that make sense?
Great.
Let me know the 3 you got on this side.
All right. Additional comments, questions, issues, resolutions, ordinances? Nope. I think that concludes our business for tonight. So thanks, everyone. And we'll do this again in May.
Bill, you're 1 minute off.
Thanks, everybody.
Night, everybody.